about the books in the school. I mean, if there's pornography in the libraries and the classrooms, it would have to be removed. It's no place for that. It's not age appropriate for elementary kids to be able to look at that stuff. So that stuff in the elementary schools, I definitely have to say, have to be removed.
Thank you. Mr. Choney?
So obviously I support age-appropriate books in the library, but we have to be clear that if you're taking books that were available away, that is banning books. That is not, that's what it is. The word ban means you're no longer allowing the children to have it, and that's a ban. So what it really comes down to is parents get to decide what's appropriate for their children. They don't get to decide what's appropriate for everyone's children. So small groups or individual parents should not get to determine what books are in our library. If they don't want their child to read it, we have systems in place for them to see all the books that are in the library and to contact librarians and tell them they don't want their child to take it out. And it's the teachers and librarians that have been trained to know what's age appropriate for the broadest spectrum of the students in our schools, and parents can make that individual decision for themselves.
Thank you. Ms. Kratz?
Yes, I support age appropriateness when selecting books. I do have to say that I kind of equate the situation to movie ratings, and some of the books that have been removed from school districts near us that parents have complained about have material in them that if that same material was in a movie, then children under 17 would not be admitted. So I feel like anything that is a graphic depiction of sexual acts, some of these books that have been removed from PV that were in question had sexual acts involving minors. Like, why are those books in our library? There's a million books to choose from. I need to know why. What's the purpose? How is that helping anyone? One of my children was exposed to pornography, real pornography, on a computer at school. No one thought it was a good thing. It wasn't a good thing. Our children need to be safe when they're at school.
Thank you. Ms. Weisford?
I definitely support age-appropriate books in our classrooms and our libraries. I also support that the parents get to choose and review their curriculum for their students. I think the biggest takeaway that I'm hearing from all this is that I need to investigate and visit our libraries, because apparently we do have some of this content, and I would like to kind of examine that. But again, I do think that transparency is important with the district, but also we have procedures in place already to review some of the content that our students are reading. So maybe we need to work better at advertising that to parents.
Thank you. Our next question. In your opinion, what are the main or the major board issues confronting the school board over the next 5 years? What do you believe are the major board issues to be dealt with over the next 5 years? We will begin with Mr. Hook.
The one, I don't think it's even opinion. I think staff attrition is the #1 issue. As our school's student-teacher ratio goes up, and it does every couple of years, our students' education gets compromised. And I see that firsthand. And the effects of just even 1 or 2 more students per teacher really messes up everything in a school building. The substitute situation everybody else has mentioned, that's another one, how it affects it. We don't have our children participating in the schools the way that they should be. The other thing that I think that we need to be thinking about is our long-term planning. We're going year to year right now. I think we need to start looking into what does the budget look like this year and project forward. How are we planning forward for our taxes into next year so that we can maintain our infrastructures and
Thank you. Ms. Hogan?
Thank you. So I agree with Matt about long-term planning. I think that is important. The most important issue in the next 5 years, and honestly probably in the next 100 years, is always going to be the budget and funding. The funding formula is now in front of the legislature to try to figure out how to solve that since the recent court case. And, I really think we need to ask the state to fund education at the rate that they promised and to take pressure off of the local taxpayer. It really is deeply unfair and it's not sustainable the way our schools are funded in Pennsylvania. So I'm gonna leave it there just because I know I'm running out of time.
Thank you. Ms. Scott?
Okay, well, it looks like we're agreeing on a lot tonight. We do have a teacher shortage. It's not going to go away next year. It's going to continue until we get some more educated. So encourage your children. But, and that is one of the problems. One of the others that I see is also supporting all this and the fiscal issues and budget issues that schools are having to deal with. And with no real answers all the time.
Thank you. Mr. Brad Updegrove.
So I know there's teacher contracts under negotiation right now. That obviously would be a very big issue. Another way too, I know the money's just not there, but another way to get great teachers is to make it monetarily appeasing to them to come to Boyertown. So that I think it's something we also want to think about. Teachers do a lot of work and they deserve the money that they should get paid for it. We'll also be hiring a new superintendent, I believe, in the next few years. I heard that can cause some chaos because there'll be an interim superintendent, and then if we don't get it figured out, there'll be another interim superintendent, and so on and so forth. So I think we should start planning for that now. If there's anything we can do ahead of time to maybe get that process to go smoother and quickly get a new superintendent so we don't have those interims that just cost more money and waste more time. And then obviously too, getting our cyber school back up and running to an elite level would be very beneficial to everyone. And it would take away from that the money we have to pay to these charter schools.
Thank you. Mr. Roger Updegrove.
Yes, our biggest problem right now is teachers, but as of last night's meeting, I talked to the HR director. We are only one short of filling the position for all the teachers in the school system. And there's one other thing that was brought to my attention was that those new teachers coming in are all on the lower end of the school teaching system on like the elementary side. Out of the 500 school districts in Pennsylvania, there was only 9 students that graduated from the chemistry classes for 500 school districts, only 9. So the top end of our district is where we're going to struggle down the road to get teachers in there. The other thing is our budget. I know, we got a lot of issues in front of us, and all the board members coming on in November are going to have to deal with that also. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Piccioni.
It feels like everybody kind of took all the good answers. The teacher's contract is definitely one of the things that'll be up in the next few years. I think it's actually up at the end of this year. And like Brad said, if we're going to attract the best candidates, we need to make our contract and our teachers' working conditions and their pay, competitive to other districts and give them an opportunity to feel valued through that. Brad mentioned that we'll have a superintendent contract. I don't know if Mrs. Torsha will want to stay on after her contract is up, so we would probably end up having to hire a new superintendent. And then obviously the budget is going to be there all the time, but the way to make that not less impactful, but less of a sword hanging overhead is to do that long-term planning so that we know where we're going to be in 5 years. We're not worried about 5 years from now when we get there.
Thank you. Ms. Kratz?
Yes, I'm repeating what everyone else has said, but definitely the budget, attracting enough good teachers to come to our district. Also, something I think that needs to be addressed sooner rather than later is the level of rigor at the high school. It seems like our highest students are running out of classes when they get to their senior year. And I won't pretend to know the mystery of college admissions, but the one thing that seems consistent across all schools is rigor. They want students to continue their rigor senior year, and some of our seniors are only going to school half day now because they don't either need any more classes or there aren't those classes being offered to them. It seems like the AP classes there's fewer and fewer every year. They're adding dual enrollment at the expense of AP classes, which is a good option for some, but some of our students need the AP classes. And just along with that, AP Comp Science, for whatever reason,
It is truly amazing. Ms. Weisford?
Yeah, I'm gonna piggyback off of what everybody else said, but, you know, along with the budget, I mean, inflation is creeping on all of us, and I just think that it is gonna get worse. And we really need to try to work together as a board to plan ahead for that, along with, and we mentioned this, but, you know, the building maintenance, facility maintenance, that's always something that seems to be creeping up on us. Some of the buildings need repairs, unexpected repairs, and how do we prepare for that long-term so that way we're not, you know, caught off guard by some of the things that we have to work on and fix.
Thank you. Ms. Skelton?
As I mentioned before, I'm a homeschooler. We would like to get our daughter back into the district at some point in time. I really just can't keep up when it gets to algebra and beyond. So we're looking at a lot of different options and a lot of different issues, and I'm having a hard time getting information. So I agree with what everybody else said, but I'm also going to throw out there that for me, security is an issue. It may not be, but I cannot get any information about security. And all I know is that we have armed officers in the high school. I don't think we have them in any other schools. That's a problem to me. Either we need to have them in all, or we need to have them in none. I personally would like to see them in all, in light of everything that's been happening all over the country. It's not fair to have them in one school and not the others. Are their lives more important than our younger children? Like I said, it could be planned. I cannot get any information, not even the information for the public.
Thank you. My next question. If elected, what is your plan to provide schooling for and to absorb hundreds of new students who will be joining the district as a result of various developments in New Hanover Township and other municipalities as well? Again, what would be your plan to provide schooling and absorb the hundreds of new students who will join the district as a result of developments planned in New Hanover Township and other municipalities as well? We will begin with Ms. Hogan.
Thank you. Yeah, so my plan would be to continue to offer the high quality education that we offer our students. We do know that the schools in Montgomery County do have some space in them to absorb new students. That was figured in as part of when we did redistrict. So I think it's just to continue to fulfill our mission, our goals, and work towards achieving our vision.
Ms. Scott?
So we have had a little discussion on, kids, of course, you're going to talk about who's coming, who's going, and what we're going to do. We have discussed many things. We do some looking forward at things. We're not always looking behind us or right in front of us and hoping we're going to get there. The planning to absorb the new kids into the school is already, they've already know pretty much who is coming in for this coming school year. If we did find a need for more space, we even talked about at some point, if we needed to, please don't panic, because we're all taxpayers here, and we never like to hear build on. But that's what we just kind of looked at a couple of schools and thought, well, we could do that here, and we could do that there. So we want to definitely continue with the fine education. We don't want to any child to miss out on that. That's always a part of a school member or school director's thought process.
Thank you. Mr. Brad Updegrove.
So that's actually a great question. I wasn't even considering that question. I'm happy to hear that we do have some space available in preparation and that the current school board is making considerations and thinking about planning for the future. It's really hard for me to say at this point. I'm not on the school board. I don't know what all the discussions are, but that is a really great question. And if I would get on there, I'd absolutely make that one of the priorities because we do not want to get in a situation where we can't even house all of our students.
Thank you. Mr. Roger Updegrove.
Last year, we graduated 525 students. We brought in over 700. This year, we're graduating 500 students, and we brought in 868 new students. So this is where the crowding situation is going to be an issue down the road. Douglas Township has almost 500 new homes on the planning just for Douglas Township. Now, New Hanover has, I think, about another 200 and some new homes coming in. And we're not even talking about Berks yet, what's coming in. So there is a problem down the road, and we're going to have to address it. But our battles are right now is this coming budget.
Thank you. Mr. Piccioni.
So like others have said, that's what the planning is for. That's why we need to be planning ahead 5 years in the future or more. What we'll probably end up having to do at some point, because every district has to do this, is you have to look at your space and look at who's living where and move kids around. We saw this happen, I think, in 2019 or 20, I think with the pandemic, that who got sent where got all, discombobulated. But there was a plan in place of how to use our buildings more effectively. And I think if you look at some of the buildings in some of the elementary schools in particular, there's more space for students there. There's less space in other places. So you need to redraw those lines periodically because we're all one Boyertown. It shouldn't really matter which elementary school or which middle school kids go to. They should be getting that same high quality education regardless.
Thank you. Ms. Kratz.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of something that hasn't already been said. As far as I know, these developers don't need permission from the school district to build. They build and then the school has to play catch up. So again, planning, long-range planning will be important. And I think we need to maintain that commitment of giving our students a quality education. And in my opinion, if the class sizes are too large, that infringes on our ability and a teacher's ability to give the best education possible.
Thank you. Ms. Weisford.
Yeah, I think everybody touched on the biggest concerns with having that many students coming into the system. I do sort of agree with Joe on what he said, that, we have to kind of work towards planning ahead for these types of things. We all know that in every area that we all are living in, there's so many homes going up. At this point, I don't know if any of us can actually keep up with the amount of construction that is being done. So long-term, and touching on what Roger said, the budget is all coinciding with what we need to do to be prepared for all these increased students coming into the district.
Thank you. Ms. Skelton.
She doesn't want me to talk. I'm going to echo what everybody else says. We just have to find more money in our budget. We just have to. And I know that we're working hard and that our current board is doing a really good job with that. I'm going to reiterate again, we can find a ton of money. And the exact number that we're giving to charter schools actually is estimated to be $5,602,074. And last night, they stated that the majority of those charter students are cyber schooled. There's no reason why we can't have a good cyber charter school to attract those back and get those dollars back, because our dollars, tax dollars, go to the school and then they leave the school to go to the charter schools. We need those kids back in a cyber charter here and get some of that money back, and then you have a lot more money. We can also look at other innovative ways, like looking at all the half days we have. Could we do full days, just a couple of them, and cut down on all those transportation costs on the half days that don't mean anything to the kids? And the teachers actually don't all like those. I've talked to several, and the parents don't either.
Thank you. Mr. Hook?
This area is not getting, the population size is not going down. It's growing and growing, and every year we have more and more developers pushing into this space, and we have to be advocating for our students. And this is not just a school board issue, so I'm prepared to advocate for our students outside of the school board and at the county level or at the local level, because that needs to be, they don't have any responsibility to our school district. They can drop a development in here and then move away, and then they have no responsibility to the land or anything else. So I think we need to consider that. There's space in the budget that we can work on, and certainly the charter schools is a good place to start. However, there's not a lot of fat to cut from that, and we need to be mindful of it. There are better solutions. There are grants out there. There's a farm grant. There are lots and lots of things available from the state level that we need to start looking into, and we also need to plan forward. We're not looking at the 5 years forward.
Thank you. Next question. I know some of these questions tend to overlap, and it's tough sometimes. I'm going to ask all the candidates to dig real deep now and try to tell us something that you haven't told us already tonight. I know that's tough, okay, but we're counting on you. What does fiscal responsibility mean to you? In terms of being a school board member in the Boyertown Area School District, what does fiscal responsibility mean to you? We will begin with Ms. Scott.
Okay, well, to me, it means balancing your budget every year. It means being responsible, it's right in the title, being responsible with the funds that we are given. Always making the priority the children and what they need to get a good education is part of that fiscal responsibility to me. Also, having respect for taxpayers goes along with that, because if we're wasting money on things that we don't need and we're not watching those little things, we're accountable as a board to the taxpayers too, to the parents too. And so all of those things, when you're sitting down and you're looking at this $140+ million budget, has to all be considered. You also have to remember that I love the teachers, I respect the teachers, and I want to pay the teachers. That's 65 to 67% of the budget is teachers, and that's fine, that's great.
Thank you. Mr. Brad Upton Grove.